Hello Steelers, and welcome to this battle report game of PBI by Peter Pig, Poor Bloody Infantry. It's the Second World War company combat game basically, generally using 15mm figures, but you can use bigger if you want, up to 25mm or down to 10mm, 6mm, whatever works. It's a game that works on a grid. I've been reading it for the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately the rules are incredibly ugly by modern standards, but there are some fantastic rules in there. I'm going to probably do a review of it, so I'm going to not talk too much about the rules at this point. But this game is, I'm just going to do basically a pretty simple walkthrough of the game using a Malaya style scenario that I've just made up with Japanese attacking Indians, and I've taken the lists for both of these from the PBI company architects books, which I got as well. I've used the Indian Gurkhas for this because they fell into the right time period, and I mean they're pretty similar to the other Indian units anyway, but I just took those because there were Gurkhas fighting in Malaya. The Japanese is just a pretty typical Japanese infantry battalion with a couple of tanks in support. They're veterans, so it's going to be harder for them to be damaged in the game, but you'll see how that works. I'll talk a little bit about the table as well. I did do a live playthrough of PBI a while back, and I noticed on YouTube in particular that there isn't a great many number of games of this out there. So I thought, well, you know, I've been reading the rules. Let's put it to the test and see what happens with it. See how good a game it is. I did the first one, which was very basic. It was just a small attack by Americans onto Germans. This time it's something a little bit more complex, and I'm going to add in as many of the rules that I can remember as possible. I am going to say here and now that this is not a training video. This is definitely not, don't take any of the rules that I give you here as read, because I probably will forget things. I'll try to get as much right as possible. Most of it's pretty simple and can be held in your head once you've played it a couple of times. I've noticed, like a lot of Peter Pig games. There's some really nice little touches here and there in there, and you'll see those as we come along. So what I'll do is I'll turn our camera off here. I'll show you the two sides, talk about their forces. I'll show you the table as well and talk a little bit more about that as well. And then really we'll just get going and see what happens. So this is our Japanese company of 1942. These are veterans, so they, as I said, these are going to be a lot harder to actually hit in the game. It's a much smaller group than the Gurkhas, which you'll see when I show you in a second. It's a pretty solid core of just 3 infantry platoons, A, B and C. They also have a company commander as well over here, and they have a tank platoon which is made up of 2 Hagos. The tank platoons are actually average because the way that PBI works, everything is done on a list. So I've just drawn a list out here, and it's done with points as well, just to make sure the game is relatively balanced. But there's things in it that change that balance, and you'll see, like bringing reinforcements on. So the points you're supposed to spend is 400. So I don't know if you can make it out on this sheet here, but the Gurkhas have cost exactly 400, whereas the Japanese, this group of Japanese, is 395. I could have messed about a little bit with the numbers and made it right up to 500, but I couldn't be bothered. I just wanted to get these on the table as they are. So you know, you've got quite a bit of space to mess about, but this would be an average size for a veteran unit for the game. Each infantry company here is exactly the same, so each one is made up of a platoon commander. They have a pistol. They also have 6 rifle bases, each of these ones here, so there's 6 of those. They also have 3 LMG bases as well, so that's these 3, and then they also have 2 light mortars attached as well, because the Japanese had a lot of what they called knee mortars, or at least what were called by the Allies as knee mortars. They weren't, you're not supposed to fire them off the knee because it would break your leg. As I say, these are all veteran, so that's why it's cost a lot for a relatively small amount of men, but I thought because of the Japanese way of fighting in 1942, they would probably be better fighters than the Gurkhas, as they prove themselves to be. Also, we have what are called assets, which we can dice for during our asset turn, and the Japanese have gone for sneak move, which means they can move a lot quicker, up the table, and then assault. So that's, I'm keeping it kind of historical there. They also have rapid arrival, which is for bringing on any units that are off the table, which some of these will be as reserves. And then also they have flank as well, which stops the enemy bringing their units on as well. So I'm trying to kind of play it a little bit historical as much as possible within the rules, and there's quite a lot of scope in the rules to be able to do that. The game, it says you can play whatever you want, ahistorically, forces against each other. However, I think long-term viewers of this channel probably realise that's anathema to me, and I would far more prefer to do something that's vaguely historical. Okay, let's have a look at the Gurkhas and see what they're up to. Okay, so here we have our 1942 Gurkha company. So this is anybody that could have been fighting in Malaya in 1942 against the Japanese. And again, this is 400 points, so this is probably about what you would be looking at for an average platoon for PBI. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Interestingly, it's almost exactly the same amount of figures as you would be using in O Group, for example, and I basically use the same figures I'm using in O Group and I Ain't Been Shot Mum and even Chain of Command for this as well. As I say, each unit is about the size of a unit in O Group. So for this we have our company commander. He's armed with a pistol here. Unfortunately I don't have a bigger unit, a bigger figure for this, but he'll do there, he's okay. And then we've also got 3 infantry platoons, 1, 2, 3, same as the Japanese. Again, you could have a minimum of 2 of these foot units, and I can't remember what the maximum is, but you could just absolutely stuff your army full of foot soldiers if you wanted to. In this case, because they're average, I haven't done. We've also got a medium machine gun platoon as well, and they also have a platoon commander who's armed with a rifle. They don't fire offensively, they can only fire defensively. Basically, if you're armed with a pistol you can't fire, but you may be armed with a rifle or an SMG. And then we also have another mortar platoon as well of 80mm mortars, or 3-inch mortars for the Gurkhas. And again, they have a platoon commander for that as well, so they'll be bringing on a support. We also have 2 armoured cars, 2 Lanchesters. These are armed with heavy machine guns, and then we also have as well a couple of 2-pounder guns as well. These are towed, so I've got the towed vehicles there. Now there is mention in the rules, and it is only a brief mention, that anything but armour should have a platoon commander with it. I couldn't find anywhere else that he actually said this. It just says he wants in a table, so I'm not really 100% sure. These probably should have a platoon commander with them, but I couldn't afford one, so I didn't put one in. So I've just left them to fight independently, as happened in Malaya anyway. So you know, it's not a historical thing, but that's just something to be aware of. You might have to put a platoon commander in unless it's armour. Each of these platoons are again the same. I did them as similar as possible as the Japanese ones. I mean, you know, similar to each other, not similar to the Japanese, but similar to each other, just to make things easier for me. Each one has 6 rifle bases, and again you can increase or decrease that number depending on how many points you want to spend. They've also got 3 LMG bases as well for each one. They also have a light mortar and also a boys anti-tank gun, and of course their platoon commander as well. These ones are armed with SMG, so they're a little bit more hard hitting than the pistol armed Japanese ones or on the other side. So it's a bit of a mix, as I say, around about, so it's exactly 400 points is what I was going to say for these men here. So the OR, that's, like I said, that's pretty much your typical force that you would be fielding in PBI. So it gives you a bit of an idea just really how many figures you would probably need for this game. And you don't have to mount them as 3 men. You could just mount these as individuals and just say it's a rifle section quite easily. It's no problem whatsoever, or part of a section or whatever. And you can split these how you want within the different squares as well. You can see this is my table. This is these are 6-inch squares. I'll talk more about that in a second. However, for the assets for the Gurkhas, they have surprise, which allows them to move units around. They can move up to 4 units around on the tabletop and put them anywhere they want, so you can basically use them almost as an ambush, but they have to be where somebody else already is. So we could say, for example, deploy the 2-pounders, use the surprise, stick them closer to the Japanese tanks or whatever, you know. So you can, it's a bit of a, again, it's a defensive means, and it's basically an ambush almost. Gifted leader, you give that to one of your commanders, and then they will not fail their motivations. That is something we'll talk about as the game goes on. And then also, similar to the Japanese, we've got rapid arrival as well, so just to bring on any of these units as a what we call it, as the reinforcements. Alright, I'll show you the table, and we'll just talk a little bit about the table and the different various aspects of that as well. So this is a table, pretty typical Malayan scene, 1942. You got the trunk road going through the centre, small village with a couple of buildings in it scattered across the trunk road, and then jungle on either side. Now, when you set up, there are a certain number of different types of terrain that you're supposed to use for the game. I've kind of glossed over that a little bit in this game, just because I wanted to make it, again, a little bit more historically plausible, and also because it's just a solo game, me versus me. And what I mean by that is you have closed terrain, so that's things like woods, so anything with a palm tree on is a closed terrain. Buildings are also closed terrain, and they sit within one of these 6-inch squares basically. Obviously the road as well is a terrain piece. You have then partial terrain as well, which I've designated with the bushes. These are just make it harder for you to hit. They're a little bit difficult to walk out of, not as hard as the hard terrain, but they don't block line of sight. So the jungle itself is broken up with some of these partial terrain pieces, and also it's just to give it a bit more flavour, like I said, and then we've got enough jungle for people to hide in as well. This I'm just going to play until the end of the countdown clock, which is 20, starts at 21 at the end of the defender's turn. You roll a dice and then take off how many numbers, whatever the score is. So it could last basically, you know, 5 turns or less even. What's 6 into? It could be 4 turns, in fact, if my maths is correct. Yeah, the minimum turns you'll have is 4, because if you roll 6, 6, 6, 6, then you're going to get 24. So that you would have at least 4 turns. What you normally do as well in PBI is the reconnaissance phase. Slightly similar to that my favourite chain of command and its patrol phase. But it's slightly different. It's done off table, and you either start at either end of these and you move your figures around on here, or a figure, and for every time you get to one of these bubbles you get points for it, and then as soon as you've got 2 or more points than your opponent, you can start the game. If you get to 8 points, then you start the game automatically. And also you can do things by taking risks as well, and you might lose bits and pieces. I'm not playing this because, as I say, I know who is going to be the attacker. It's the Japanese. I know who's the defender. That's the Gurkhas. So this would be like for a club game or something like that. If you're not doing a scenario-based game, it's just an easy way to decide who's going to be attacker or defender and who controls the first initiative. So we're not playing that, but I just wanted to point it out that it does exist. So as I say, although this is you know, it's a game of PBI, it is a bit of a I am fudging bits and pieces here already. Also, just to mention as well, the table is actually 4x4, so I've got it on my 6x4 table, but it gives me 2 foot either end of the table to actually put the figures on. So it's a nice easy way of doing this. I've done it on this is the table I made for Rommel, and I use it for square bashing as well. It's where I've just put flock on an MDF base basically, so I've got the squares so I know where they are. And as I say, the way it works is because it's a grid game. Sorry, the cat's been up here knocking stuff about. Because it's a grid game, you know exactly where you are. You don't need to measure anything. It's with tape measures or fudge anything. You know you're either in a building or you're not, which I like quite a lot. Alright, that's probably enough banter from me at the moment. We'll get this game started. I'll talk about deploying, and then we shall move on to the game itself. Okay, so deployment is governed by dice rolls, and depending on who is the attacker and defender and who is the leading player. The leading player is the one who won the combat patrol that we played earlier, that we're not playing in this game, but in this one I'm using the Japanese as a leading player, and they're also going to be the attacker. Because we're playing a fast game, quick game, we just go straight to probing attack. So it's this is just the one that you use if you don't want to do the patrol phase parts of it. And so because we are leading player, wants to be the attacker, we look down on this column here, and we have, it says here, defender on a 5 or 6 may choose second unit to be on table. Attacker on 3, 4, 5, 6 may choose a unit to be off table, and then do this twice. What this means is we both sides have a first unit, and it always has to be a foot platoon. So I've just given this to the infantry platoon A for both of these, so they're always going to be on table. The defender always has 2 units on the table at the start, and the attacker always has 2 units off the table at the start. So the way we do this is then the defender knows which of their first units is going to be on the table, so it's going to be their platoon A, so we know that, but then we roll the dice and we see if we can choose what our second one is going to be. So we roll the dice, 6, 5, they needed a 5 or a 6, and they can choose it. So they are actually going to choose, because they know there's Japanese armour in the area, I think they're going to choose their 2-pounder actually, so I'm just going to mark that on here. So I'm going to put 2-pounder second unit. So that's them on table. Everything else is going to be in reserve, so that's going to have to get on the table. However, the attacker now has to have 2 units on table. So we're having the infantry platoon A. They're actually just going to bring their second infantry platoon on as well. So that's going to be their 2 units on. And then we roll 2 dice, and they can choose if they want the other 2 units off table or on table, because otherwise if they don't choose them they will be off on table. So I'll roll for both of them. So first of all, the infantry platoon C. It's a little bit complex this, but I can kind of understand it. It's one of those things that you really need to play it out a little bit. So infantry company C is a 1, so that is a fail, so that is off table. So that's going to have to be in the reserve, so we'll just put off there so I know. And then finally for the tank platoon, they could choose the company commander or the tank platoon. They're going to go for the tank platoon. Let's have a look. And that is a 6. So this time they can choose it to be off table. So no, sorry, I've got it wrong already. Infantry platoon C is going to be on table because they failed. And now they can choose to keep the tank units off table. They're going to keep the tanks off table. I want to bring those on later on, because we also have that rapid arrival that we can use anyway to try to get those on. So the Japanese have already got their 3 units on. Their company commander is off table, as is their tank platoon at this point. Okay, so we've deployed, and the Japanese, because they weren't able to keep that 3rd platoon off the table, they've had to put it on, so their attack is quite crowded here. But we've got 1 platoon here, basically, another one here stretching over these 3 squares, and then the final one is here, and these are all kind of together. If you have more, you can have as many units in a square as you want, but if you have more than 3, 4 or more, is called clustered. So when they get fired at by a LMG or MMG or anything that's automatic, they get a bonus because they're firing at a larger number of targets. So far it looks like I think every single one of the Japanese units is actually clustered. There's nobody with less than 4 in them, and there's quite a few over here because I had to kind of crush them together. On this back table here, there's 7 on each of those, 7 and 6. So yeah, there's quite a lot in there. The Gurkhas, on the other hand, have decided to put their first unit on the table around the village. So they've basically got 2 rifle sections and an LMG section in each of these buildings. This is a building because it's within that square, although it's on the road, it is within the square. This is a building here. If you are within the square with the building, you're in the building. You don't have to be physically in the building. And then they have their basically HQ and small support staff at the back here in the building over here. So they're fighting. They've also elected to put their 2-pounders on as well. So there's one over here, and then there's another one over here. And one of these, this is enclosed terrain at the back, whereas this one over here is impartial terrain. And I put those at the back because well, the Japanese tanks are coming, and we just don't know where they're going to come. So they can, like I say, we can use that surprise to move them around if they want to, if they want to put them closer to the Japanese enemy. So that's why I wanted them on the table at the start. Right, so let's start with the first turn. So in PBI we have a strict turn sequence which both players will go through completely, and then that ends one full turn. So the first part is, if you can see on this, it says asset selection and application. Just going to go through them for you. Then the company commander, he gets to do something. Then any morale that needs to be done, that's obviously not needed in the first turn. Then we do opponent opportunity shooting. We'll do some of that if we do it. That's basically if you're in a square next to somebody that's activated. Then we do the motivation. That's from the company commanders, so platoon commanders, and their action points. Then the unit rolls for the new officer if they're needed, if they've been killed. Then we go through to the next unit, and then we see if smoke is maintained, reinforcement rolls, but not on turn one. And then any arrivals and deviations, which again is your guys coming in. And then the game countdown is the defender's turn only. And then we also unimmobilise vehicles. So there's 12 steps. Most of these you could probably jump at most cases. But in this one, first of all, we are going to go straight. Here we're going to go for the asset selection because the Japanese get to go first. We'll be ignoring the company commander because they don't have the company commander on the table at the moment. Ignoring morale because there will be no morale. And then any opportunity shooting. I think at this point there won't be any because they're not next to any enemy in their square. So then we will probably just jump straight down onto the motivation. So first of all though, we're going to go for the assets. Now again, remember what I told you, the Japanese have got 3 assets. They've got the sneak move, they've got the rapid arrival, and a flank as well. So I'm going to go for flank because this will stop any enemy reinforcements coming on for the next 2 turns. The way you do assets is you have a certain amount of dice for them. So in this case, in the Japanese case, we have for flank we've got 4. You can use this number of dice. You can roll them all at once or one at a time per turn. So potentially you could use it one every turn, rolling one for 4 turns, rolling it once, rolling 1 dice. But this is your pool of dice. Once you've used those dice up, you can't use the asset again. And basically you need a 6 to get the asset. So they're going to try it, and I'm going to try with all 4 dice because you know, little chance of you getting a 6 with 1 dice at a time. So I'm going to try with 4, but that's going to use up all of their assets for that flank, and they'll not be able to do it again. But I'm just going to give it a go. So no, we've not got it. We've got a 3, 2 2s, and a 1. So unfortunately for the Japanese, they've failed to get that asset, and they've also used up all the dice for it as well. So we can't use that again in the game. So we jump straight over to motivation in the turn proper. Now motivation comes from your platoon commanders. So this is one here, and you do this unit by unit. So you motivate one unit. One unit being a company, basically a platoon. So in this case it will be this square, this square, this square. We're going to try to motivate those. Each platoon commander has 3 dice, 3 attempts to motivate in the turn. And to motivate, you basically see how far away the square is that you want to motivate. So in case, for example, these guys here, and you have to roll over that number on the d6. You count the square that the commander is in. So here, 1, and then 2 to these guys here. You can go 1 diagonal as well, otherwise it has to be orthogonal, but you do get 1 diagonal if you want to use it. So for example here we're going to need a 2 or above, and that's because obviously he's right next to it. If you've got the commander in there as well, you get a +1. A 6 is always a pass and they will get motivated. A 1 is always a fail, but you will always get 1 residual action point which you can do a number of things with, only a few things with. It's not a great deal, but you can actually do something with it at least. So everything can do something. So the way we work, so like I said, we've got 3 dice here. What I'm going to do, once you've motivated a square, you then roll a d6, and that gives you how many action points you get. Sorry, and you get the +1 for the action points for the square that the commander is in. So I'm going to start with these two either side. So we'll start with this one here. Basically we need anything but a 1 in this first case. 6, so they have been motivated. So I'm going to put dice there for a second to show how many, though they have been motivated. Then I'm going to try to motivate the unit that's in there. So that's another. Oh, they failed to it. So failed to do it. So that's an automatic fail, even with the platoon commander in there. So they only get one action point. And then finally over here, another one as well. So he's failed that as well. So again, they only get 1 action point. These ones were motivated, so now we roll to see how many motivations the square gets. And as I say, if we'd got I think the veterans may actually get an extra +1 because they are veterans, so they're just better. So they get an extra 1. So 6 becomes a 7, obviously it's the maximum they can get. So I'm just going to put that there, just so that reminds us. Okay, I'm just going to show you this for a couple of turns because it may slow the video down a little bit, but just so you can kind of get used to what we can do with the action points. So as I said, these guys here have got 7, these two have both got 1, and it's only the residual 1. Residual action points only allow you to do a number of things, and they are set up or take down a HMG, medium machine gun or a medium mortar, attempt to remove a pin marker, attempt to remove a casualty marker, shoot with 1 action point, or move 1 square, even if it's out of a difficult square. Unless you're pinned, then there's no movement allowed anyway. So you are pretty restricted by what you can do. These are in both of these are in partial squares, as we said before, but I want them to move, so I'm just going to get them forward, so they're not going to be doing anything else. So each unit or each base in there has that number of action points. They don't have to move together. They could move elsewhere, so I could move some of them this way if I wanted, but I don't really have the space at this point, so I'm just going to shift these ones as well forward. I could leave some behind if I wanted. You can do what you want, you don't have to do everything with all of the units in there, but let's just get these forward into there now in the difficult. So they've just moved forward with theirs. Over here I probably want to get these somewhere close to the buildings and to start shooting at the Indians straight away. You can only fire 3 times in a turn, so you can only use 3 action points for your firing. So in this case, I'm going to move them out to a partial square. It costs 1 for infantry, so that's going to cost them 1. I might actually split them down a little bit because I don't want them to be too clustered when the fire comes back at them, because it's just going to make it's going to be horrible for them basically. So these ones here have already spent 1. If they were to leave this square here, that would cost them 2 because it's a difficult square. So I'm going to actually move them to over here, a little bit further on, and then they are going to take a pop at the Indians. So I'll just get these moved out and then I can work out where we're at. Okay, so we managed to get these guys into this partial cover here, and they are now firing at the Indians in these buildings close in front of them, the 3 ones here. They've got 4 action points left. They can only fire to a maximum of 3 using three of those, so that's going to drop them down to 1. So I'm just going to leave that there just so I know how many they've got. When they're finished, we'll see what they do with those. And for every shot, they've got an LMG and then 2 rifle bases. So for each rifle base firing, for every action point they use, they take 1 dice. So that's going to be 3 for the first one. Then it's going to be 3 for the second one. And then, as I said, they've got the LMG. Now that fires 2 dice for every action point, so that's going to be 6 in total. So we're rolling a total of 12 dice. They only hit on a 6. There are no other modifiers on firing. So we roll our dice and pull out any 6s. It's not a great number of hits. That's only 2 hits on there. So now if I wanted to, I could choose to turn those potentially into pinning actions. You basically just re-roll however many hits you've got, and you get a number and you've pinned them. I'm not going to, I'm going to go for kills on this. So the target chooses their first hit, so they're going to take it on 1 of their rifles, but then the attacker then gets to choose their second hit and others, so they're going to put that one onto the LMG team. Your basic save is a 4, 5 or a 6 on a D6. So we'll start with the rifles, we'll work it out. They are in wood, building or rocky, so that gives them a +2. So that takes that down to 2 or above. So I'll just turn that over so we remember. So we're on 2 or above at the moment. However, if they were a raw target, that would decrease it by 1, but they're not. But they are in proximity as well. Proximity is the 8 squares around the unit firing, so they are firing within proximity. They may get a chance to fire back, but we'll see what happens. So that's going to give them a -1, so that takes them to a 3 or above. 3 or above is a save, so a 1 or a 2 and it's a kill. Oh dear, that's a kill on the first one there, so let's put that on there. So we'll put a casualty marker down. We leave the casualty markers in the square that they occurred, and also from the unit that they occurred from as well. I'm going to mark that in a minute just so I know which unit it's come from. So then they are removed, they're taken off the board, so they are killed and killed. And then we do the same again for the LNG, so 1 or a 2 is a kill. Oh, it's another kill as well, so I'll take that off, and I'm just going to turn that casualty dice up to 2. So unfortunately for them, the Indians have taken 2 hits. Now they can return fire, so they're going to try. So what you have to do is you need a 5 or a 6. You roll 1 dice per base in the square, and however many 5s and 6s you roll is how many can return fire. You also choose how many. So if you had an LMG in there, still you would use that. But they've only got 1 rifle, so we need a 5 or a 6 to return fire. No, they haven't. So unfortunately, they've taken 2 casualties and not being able to fire back. So it's not looking great for the Gurkhas straight away. Okay, so we've got our next unit to activate, and I'm going to try to get these ones. I want to get them up into the jungle and hopefully maybe to attack over into the side of the building over here. Now, like I said before, we've got 3 activations. For this guy, really though, he only really needs to activate these 2, so he can fail 1 and he can still crack on. So he's going to try to activate or motivate his team, so he needs anything but a 1 basically, a 6, so they have activated, and then he's going to try to get these guys to do it as well. Again, same again, anything but a 1, but he does get a second chance if he needs it. So look, so he's activated them as well. So we will now roll for their action points. First one, 4, they are veterans, so they get an extra 1, so that takes them up to 5. And then over here we have a 3, that becomes a 4, so quite a lot there, so that's pretty good going. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move these forward into here, so that's going to cost them 1 because they're coming out of partial terrain. It only costs 1 to get out of partial terrain. That will take them down to 3. So I'm just keeping these. I want to kind of keep them together a little bit. Now they've gone into full terrain, so they can move forward, but it's going to cost them 2. So I'm going to push these again into this area here, so they're going to get in there. Now that leaves them 1 action point left. I could get them to fire with 1 action point across at those Indians. So I think we might do that, because that doesn't block line of sight and they are within 6 squares, which is their range. They're only firing with 1 action point though, so we get our dice and we have, let me just check, I think there might just be 1 LMG in there and mostly rifles. Let's see, we've got 1 LMG I can see there, so just checking, yeah, the other 2 LMGs are there. So we've got 1 LMG, they fire with 2 dice, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rifles, so that's another 4 dice for them, hitting once again on 6s. Let's see, I don't think it's going to cause much damage anyway, and there's not a single hit. They could potentially fire back now, so there's 3 bases in that area, so they're going to fire back, or potentially fire back 5s and 6s they can. One of them can, so of course they're going to choose their LMG to fire back, and that is going to fire back on 6. A 2 and a 4, so no, they haven't made it. So we're going to activate these guys as well now. This is the next one, and these are going to move forward for 1. Again, I am keeping them close together. This is not great for when you're being shot at, say for example by an LMG or something, but they, you know, they are, I want to kind of keep them together just for now. So that's cost them 1, so that takes them down to 4. They've got 4 points left. They're going to move forward another 1 into there, so that's then going to take them down to 2 points of their original 5, because they are moving out to closed scenery. And then they are then also going to use their 2 points. They can't assault, they need 4 action points to assault, so they can't actually assault, but they can fire. And those Indians there are actually in close, and they're going to get 2 shots in at them. There's quite a lot of firepower coming out of here, because we've got, let's just work it out, we've got our 2 LMGs, so they're firing on their own, and then we also have, let me just count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4 rifles. So that's 2, 3, 4 rifles. So we're doubling that because we're firing twice, so that's 8, so that's going to be 16 shots in total. 2, 4, 6, 8 and 16, so all the dice. These are in proximity, so if they are hit, it's going to be pretty bad for them, but let's have a look. 6 is to hit, and we've got just 1 hit there on those Indians. They have already fired, so they can't return fire, unfortunately for them. The defender chooses, so they're choosing one of their rifles. They are in buildings though, so it's a 4, 5, 6. So it starts on a 4, 5, 6, it goes down to a 2, 4, 5, 6, however they're in proximity, so it's a 3, 4, 5, 6 for a save. So have a look. Yes, they've saved, so no effect there, but at least it's moved those Japanese a little bit further forward. Okay, so we are now onto our 3rd unit here. So as I say, each unit is basically a platoon, and you operate them. You can do what you want within the platoon, you know, give out your action points and wait until somebody's moved and do something else, but you can't move on to another unit until everything has activated in that unit, so that kind of restricts you a little bit. But let's see if we can get these activated first of all. So first one is going to be the actual platoon commander himself. So yes, they have activated, so I'll just put that dice there to remind me. Next one over here, they need a 2 or above, and he has done. So this, in a way, this is kind of keeping your forces close to one another. And then we have the last one over here, same again, 2 or above, and we have a 3. So yes, they've all activated. So because again these are all veterans, they get a +1 in their action points. So let's find out how many action points we have. So for the first one here, 4, that becomes a 5. So stick that down there. Then we have these. They have the platoon commander, so he automatically gives a +1, but they are veterans, so they get a +1. It's either one or the other. So in this case, they just get a +1. There you go. Anyway, 6. And then the last one over here. Let's see, a +1 on this as well. Oh, this time it's only 1. So that goes up to 2. I think I've got it wrong before. If you roll a 1 and you get a +1 as a veteran, you'll always get 2 anyway. So that's basically what they've done. I think I only give them a residual 1 previously. Now, what I want to do is I want to move these up and to assault into this square here to try to finish off the Gurkhas that are in this building. So it's going to cost me, let's just put that to one side, it's going to cost me 1 to move to there, and I'll move them all together. So that drops them down to 5. I'm also going to bring up the platoon commander, I think, as well. Don't know if this is a good idea or not. So that's cost them 1 because it's an open square. They're going to move again. Roads don't affect foot soldiers, but you can do rapid moves with any kind of vehicle that you want. Now they have 4 left. Normally it costs at least 4 APs for a unit to attack, but because these are Japanese, they get it for 3. So that's pretty good on their part. So that's I'm going to spend that 3, but I've also because I've got that extra 1, I can actually fire as well at these Indians before I go in. They will then get a return fire. They actually, no, they won't, because these already fired previous in there, so they're not able to do anything. They will get here they come fire, which is when I attack into them. So basically I'm going to spend 1 AP to fire first of all, It's only 1 AP, so they only get to fire normally. He is armed with a pistol, the platoon commander, so he doesn't get to fire. We've got 1 each for each of those rifles, and then another one for the LMG. Hitting on 6s. Let's have a look. We've got 1 hit, and they are saving on 2 or above, 3 or above, sorry. It's 2 or above because they're in buildings, 3 or above because they are in proximity, so that's a -1. So let's have a look. 2, so that's actually a hit on them, so that has killed them anyway. So I don't need to assault. So this shows you how, you know, you can take your time over doing different things with the different action points. So I'm just going to put that casualty marker up there. So these guys still actually have 3 actions left now. I'll just take that on so it's 3. The casualties stay where they are. They can be removed, but only by the Indians in their turn, and if they are in the square from the start of the turn. So if the Japanese now move into here, which they're going to do, this is stretching their potential commands a little at the moment, but it's going to bring those in. So that drops them down to 2, and then they've got 2 actions of firing left, because they fired 1. You can have a maximum of 3 firing, so they are going to fire again, and this time they're going to fire into the Indians, the Gurkhas over here. So because they've got 2, they're going to use up their 2 actions for everybody firing, so that's going to be 2 bases of rifles firing with 2 actions, and then also an LMG firing with 2 actions as well on top of that. So we'll roll these 6 of the hits. Oh, bloody hell, that's a lot. That's for 5 hits. That is a lot. So the Indians choose which one's going to be on the first one, so they're going to take it on the rifles over here. And then we also have, just get the jungle panther out of the way, then the rest of the hits are distributed amongst the units that are in the square. Actually, I've just remembered, they are clustered. There's more than 2 in there, so they do get an extra 2 shots for that LNG. So let's roll those. 3 and 3. No, they aren't hit, because there's more than 3 units. They're counted as clustered. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units in there. The attacker gets to choose which ones they want to hit, so they're going to go with another rifle. They'll put it on the platoon commander as well. Just put that on there, and then I think they'll hit the LMG and also that light mortar. So we'll start with the light mortar. These are actually saving on 2 or above, close proximity, so it's a 3 or above though. So the mortar, they have been killed, so I'll just get a casualty marker in there as well. This is not going well for this this Indian group here in the village, unfortunately for them. So let me just put a casualty marker down there. We'll talk about morale in a second in the Indians' turn. Then we've got the LMG, same again. 1 or 2 is a kill. 6, they're saved. Next up we've got the platoon commander. He's always saving on a 2 up, I believe. 3 he's saved. Then we've got the 2 rifles. I'll just roll those 2 together because we know they're both the same. So same again, 2 up, 3 and a 5, so they've been saved. Unfortunately for them, they now have 4 casualties, which is going to be a morale issue for them in their turn, but I'll show you how that works when that works. So that's that unit done. They are finished. So now it's time to start operating the other ones. So over here, I brought up this unit here. These have moved forward. They've just moved forward 2. That was the ones with 2 action points. All they've done is got there. They are now at least in close proximity to their platoon commander, so it's making it less fraught for the actions next turn. These ones move forward 2 because they only had 5, so they went through the partial terrain into the open terrain, and now they are here. They have 3 actions. What I did forget to do was do the opportunity firing from the Indians as they came in, as the Japanese came in here, but never mind. We'll do it now because these are about to assault as well, so using that last 3 of their actions. So in firing, these get 2 dice to return fire, 2 action points to return fire. So they've got an LMG in there and also 2 rifles, so that's going to be 8 dice. 6s are hits, but these are saving on a 2 or above, I think it is, for here they come. They save on a 3 or above or 2 or above for officers. However, they are clustered, so they do get an extra 2 shots in there as well. Actually, yes, I think it does count. So it's going to be 2 extra shots for each LMG shot. So 6 hits. Let's have a look. We've got 1 and 2 hits in there. So the Japanese are going to choose a rifle, and the defenders are going to choose the LMG. So let's roll those. So we said they're saving on a 3 or above anyway. Let's have a look. 3 up. First one, no. So they've taken 1 casualty, and the LMG has also been taken a casualty as well. So this assault might not go very well for the Japanese. Let me put those casualties in first of all, so just so we remember. So just stick those in. I will mark those up in a second. So these are now in the same square, and then we go on to the assault roll. So this is again a dice roll. So we have 3d6 for every assaulter or target base. So in the Japanese case, that's going to be 3 plus another 3. The assaulter has a base flamethrower. No. It's a vehicle with armour of 6+. No. It's a short assault. No. It said a foot that started in the facing square. No, they didn't, because they came from back here, so they had to move forward. Vehicle armour 1 to 5. No. SMG or assault rifle. There's not for the Japanese. They are veterans, so it's a plus D6. So that's an extra 1 in there. Target is in building, so that's taken out. And they're not raw. Okay, so they ended up with 6 dice. However, the target, they start with 3d6 per base. So what I'll do actually, I'll go through the Japanese first, because every hit is a kill. So we then roll all 6s are kills. So the Japanese haven't killed a single one of them, but let's work out how many Gurkhas there are. So we've got 3 for each of the bases. They don't have a flamethrower. They're not vehicles with 6+ armour. They're not a vehicle with 1 to 5 armour. There is an SMG in there, I think, or assault rifle. No, it's not. The SMG is attached to their leader. They're not veteran. They're not raw. There's no medium machine guns or AT weapons, 2 guns, and they are not pinned. So they're just rolling a base 9, and they need 6s. They just need to kill 1 to win this. Okay, so they've killed. Well, a draw or 1 extra kill is always going to be the defender's win. So it is target kills more or a draw. So foot bases, count the target bases, D6 equals 6 kills. Foot is destroyed in transport, they're not in transport. The assaulter falls back and becomes pinned. No additional opportunity firing, no additional opportunity shooting, and then the assaulter bases turn finished. So basically they get knocked back into this here with 1 extra kill in there, which they will put on their mortar, because they've only got a mortar and a rifleman. So that's another 3 casualties there for the Japanese. So that didn't go as well as they planned, did it? Okay, so we now go over to the Indians. There's nothing else the Japanese can do for their turn sequence. The only other thing would be the reinforcements roll, but we don't do that on turn 1 anyway, so we skip that. Then it would be their arrivals, and we skip that as well because there are none, obviously. Then we do the game down countdown, but that's only in the defender's turn, and any vehicles are unmobilised. So we quickly run straight over to the Indians, the Gurkhas. They do an asset selection and application. At the moment, they don't want to do one because they can't bring any reinforcements on, so we don't want to do rapid arrival just yet. I don't want to use up inspiring leader either at this point. I just want these guys to activate. So the opponent can do. So we do the morale next. Should I say that's the next thing? So if they had only 2 base left in their platoon, they would just be removed straight away. We have to roll to see if they pass their morale test, and the way this works is we have problems. So for every 2 killed in action that we have, casualties, that's a problem. First problem, it's okay, you can carry on with it. Second problem, they must apply a morale roll. So they actually have, so between them there is 1 casualty there and also 3 there, so that takes them 4, so that is 2 problems. So we have to roll to see if they rout or not. For an average, they need an 8+ on 2d6 to rout. If they get one less than it, so a 7 or less, then there's no motivation for the foot bases, and they basically just sit where they are. They will then probably get one residual AP, so they're kind of pinned up really. So they need 8 or above and they're out of the game. A 6, they passed it, and they can also get motivated as well then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try the motivations. So first of all, for the unit that's actually in the with the platoon commander, let's motivate them. 6, they've passed. He has three attempts at this, remember, and then we're going to try to motivate the ones over here who stood the Japanese defence. So same again, they're only 1 away, so it's going to be a 2 or above. A 5, so they have also passed as well. So action points for them. They don't get any pluses because they're not veterans. They've got 3. That's useful. They can use those to fire. And these ones over here, they get a +1 because they've got their commander in there. 1 becomes a 2. That's not great, but at least they can do something with it. Right, let's do the easy one first. These are just going to hold their position, and they're going to fire at this this mortar here. Sorry, it's not a mortar, it's rifles. The mortar have been destroyed before. They're just using their 3 dice, 3 actions, so that's going to be 2 attack dice for the 2 rifles, and then another 2 for the LMG. And then also, because they're in proximity, it's going to be harder for them to save, and they are in the open as well, so that's not going to be great for them. Sorry, they're using 3 dice, aren't they? So 3 actions. So 3 and 3 for the 2 rifles, and then another 6 for the LMG. If they can destroy this unit here, that will give the Japanese 4 casualties, and then also 2 problems, and give them a morale test as well. That's what they're planning to do. They are in the open, so it's going to be very hard for them to actually defend against that. But we'll get to that point when we get to that point. These will get a return fire, so let's try that. 1 hit. So they've done their firing, they've hit with 1, and so basically they're saving on a 4, 5 or 6. However, they're in proximity, so that takes it to a 5 or a 6. However, they are also veterans, so that takes it to a 4, 5 or a 6. So we just roll it. 4, 5 or 6 is a save for the Japanese. Yes, they've saved, so no, they can then return fire with, well, depending on if they get a return fire. Let's have a look. Yes, they do, 5 or a 6, and they can fire back, so they will with 1 action point. Hitting on a 6, no effect. So desultory firing, unfortunately. Now, you are allowed opportunity firing if you activate, and you are, I think it's within the 4 face squares, so they can't fire back the Japanese here in the jungle. They could fire back if they were fired at, but I don't think they can do opportunity firing at these Indians. These ones over here potentially can, because these have activated. Or is it better to wait and fire at those? No, I'll tell you what, let's fire at them, because they might not even get to fire at those anyway. So we roll 1 dice per base, and 6s are 5 or 6s means they can fire back. No, they can't. I did forget actually these are pinned, so it would have been a 6 for them to return fire anyway. So over here we're going to try to do some casualty removal, because this is currently affecting the Gurkhas' morale. If they can get that down to 3 KIAs, they can't get rid of these guys, because these guys are these dead are already in this square, which is occupied by the Japanese. You have to be in the square at the start of the turn to be able to remove casualties. So the only one they can do is this one here. They've got 2 action points, so they can use each one for a dice roll. Every time you use one, everybody in the square loses an action point. So even if you only roll 1 dice, everybody would be straight down to 1 dice. So it's like a group effort basically. So they're going to try it first of all they need is a 4, 5, 6 to get rid of it. But it is worthwhile doing, because they are currently taking morale issues. So let me just actually roll that in the tray. 4, 5 or 6 when we got a 5, so that has removed it, and as I say, that's now taken a full action point out of that square, so everybody's back down to 1 now. They are then going to fire at the Japanese in front of them to try to clear them a little bit. They've got the anti-tank rifle in there. They've also, I think they took a mortar hit as well, didn't they? That took a hit. The anti-tank rifle can't fire, but the LNG and the rifles can. So that's going to be 2 dice for the rifles, because they've only got 1 action point here, and then 2 dice for the LNG. They are in proximity, so that's going to cancel out their veteran status, but they'll be saving quite high because they're in buildings. We need 6s to hit anyway. Let's just have a look. Actually, they are also clustered. There's more than 3 units in there, so they get an extra 2 dice for that LNG. Always forget that. So hitting on 6s, that's not bad actually, that's against the odds. That's 2 hits. So the attackers choose the, the defenders choose the first one, so they're just going to put it on a rifle group, and the attackers choose the second hit. So they're going to put it on their their platoon commander. They can bring those back if they get killed. But let's have a look. We're saving on a 4, 5 or a 6. Because they're in buildings, that comes down to a 2, 4, 5 or a 6. They're in proximity, so that becomes a 3, 4, 5 or a 6, but they're veterans, so that becomes a 2, 4, 5 or a 6. So let's just see. They've saved the first one, and then the platoon commander, he's saved on everything but a 1 again. 2, so they both saved, but at least the Indians managed to get some shooting in. So we go straight over to the Japanese turn. That ends the Indians' turn. They don't do any reinforcements, as I said, because it's still turn 1. They do, however, roll to see how many points come off at the end of this. So let's have a look. They rolled a 4, so that has now taken them down to 17 of total from 21. So another 17, potentially another 3 full turns. So we go over to the Japanese turn, and they are actually going to try for some of their assets now. So they're going to try for a sneak move. That's the first thing. They're going to actually use 5 dice for this, because they want to get some of these guys up the table. So we're going to roll 5 dice. 6s pass. No, they haven't used it, so that's used up 5 of their 10 dice for that sneak move. So then we just go on to activations instead. Okay, so we've got motivations over here. Don't know if you can see them in the jungle or not. We've got our platoon commander down here. I'm going to do this. This is the white group of Japanese over here, so I'm going to try to motivate these. He's got 3 motivations, as always. You'll always get a residual 1. Now, unfortunately for him, I kind of split up these groups into a couple of different units. So we've got 1 out on their own. It's the mortars. Do I motivate them or not at this point? I don't think I'm going to. So I'm going to try first of all for the group with the commander himself. So we just roll a 1 is a fail, so 3, so they've been motivated. Let's see how many action points. They get a +1. So that's 2 becomes a 3. Then he's got 2 more motivations. We're going to try to motivate these, so they need a 2 or above. Yes, they've passed. They are veterans, so they get a +1. So that's 5. That becomes a 6 for their action points. And then finally, he's going to motivate the ones over here. Now these are 1, 2, 3 away. So we need a 3 or above for these this time. 5, we've got it. They roll for their action points. 3, that becomes a 4. So now we can decide what we want to do with them. Okay, so we move forward this Japanese platoon basically. I use the residual action point for this mortar to move them back into consolidation with the rest of them. They've got platoon commanders up here, and the other unit move forward. They've wasted their 4 extra points because I wanted to keep them in line for the attack. These moved 1 over into this bush over here, and they are now firing at the Gurkhas at the back of the village. They used 3 action points, and that's 3 action points for each of the rifles, so that's 3 dice, sorry, for each of the rifles, so that's 6. And then 2 as well for each action points on the LMGs, so that was another 6. They also, because they're clustered, they get an extra 2 as well on each of those, so that's another 6. So it's a hell of a lot of firing. But they are firing at them in cover. So 6 of the hits. Let's have a look. 1, 2 hits out of all of that. So the Indians will choose a rifle unit, and the Japanese will of course choose their platoon commander. So let's go with the rifle. They are in cover. They're not close. So basically it's a 2 or above save. So we'll look. First one 5, fine. And then same again for that platoon commander. 4, he's fine as well, but at least they put some fire down on them. Okay, I've rolled for motivations for these guys. These ones got 5. These unfortunately failed, so they've only got one, and that's the residual one. And then over here, these guys got 3. The reason for this is because they're pinned, they automatically get -2 on their action points. They were motivated, so they rolled 4, but because they're veterans, they get a +1. So that gives them 3 in total. They are now going to try to unpin that pin and then also try to get rid of some of these kills. So first of all, it's going to cost them 1 action point, and again, similar to get rid of some of the kills, it costs you, everybody in the square, an action point. So we drop that down to 2 for their first pin removal. 4, 5 or 6 and it's taken off. Yes, they are unpinned at least now. And now they're going to spend their last 2 on trying to get rid of 2 of these here. So it's going to be the same again, 4, 5s and 6s to get rid of those casualties because they're hovering close. 1 failed and a 5 passes, but they can't do anything else. They still have 1 KIA there, but at least they are getting a little bit better. Right, okay, this unit over here is going to go for an attack into here, but first of all they are using 2 shots, to fire, and then they can use their 3 action points to fire into them. So first of all they're going to fire, just using 2 action points, no hits. The Indians in there will get a chance to return fire, so they're going to try that. 5s and 6s they can. They've got 1 base that can fire back, so they're going to use their LMG. It fires with 1 action point, however they are clustered, so that takes them up to 4 dice to hit. So no hits. Then we're going to use those 3 to attack into there. Let's just move them in so we know where they're coming from. I thought this was probably a bit of an easier one to gain than this one over here. Let's put the pressure on these Indians here. So we've got 3 for each unit going in, so that's 3, 3, 3, and then also for that platoon commander as well, he's in there. It's a short assault because it started in the base, in the square next to them. They didn't move into there, so they're already in, so it is a short assault. They also have they are veteran as well, so that gives them another dice, but they are attacking a buildings, units in buildings, so that takes 1 off. So we're on what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right, before I forget, they do get to do some return firing, so we'll do that first of all. So this is the here they come fire. So 2 dice for each of the rifles, and then 4 dice for the LMG, but he also gets another 4 dice because they are clustered. So 6s are hits. This may change the number of hits we have going in. Let's see, that's 2 hits. So because it's very poor fire, they're basically saving on anything but a 1 or a 2. So let's just see. They've saved double 5, so yeah, they've saved. So they've actually got in, and now we see how many hits there are. So 6s are hits, and there's no save rolls in close assault. So we are killing straight away, so that's 2 kills on those Indians. So let me just put a marker down there so I remember who they are and how many kills they've taken from that final tot up. And then we work out the Indians and how many they roll. So they start with 3 per base, so that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They don't have a flamethrower, there's no vehicles in there, there's no SMGs. They're not veteran, they're not raw, and that's it basically. And then same again, 6s, they need to kill basically 2 or more to win this. No, they've lost it. So the assaulter kills more or wipes out the target. They haven't wiped them out, so it is a 6 kill. The target falls back 2 squares and is pinned. Deployed guns are lost. The assaulter stops in the assaulter's square, and and opponent's opportunity shooting is allowed. There is nobody there, I don't think, that can really shoot. So these fall back 1, 2. They leave their casualties behind, unfortunately for them, and then the Japanese take that building. Oh yeah, one of these should be off as well, shouldn't they? So 2 of these should be off. So it's going to be the LMG and the rifle. So there's only 1 guy left in there, unfortunately for the Indians, and that is their second problem for their morale. Unfortunately for them, they're not going to be able to get rid of any of their morale this turn. I don't think they're dead this turn. So then with our final action is this unit here. These are just going to move forward. we're potentially getting some opportunity fire coming in from the units as they move into this square here. They just use their residual AP. So let's just have a quick look. Fives and sixes, sorry, is for opportunity fire. So they've got one. That allows them to choose which base they want. They're going to use their LMG, of course. They are firing with 1 action point, so that's 2. They are clustered, so that's another 2. So basically 6s to hit, if they can do anything. They have hit one of them, so let's have a look. They're going to choose a rifle unit. So 2 or above is a save because they are in buildings. 6 is saved, so no effect. Okay, we've got some firing now. I've moved these Japanese forward. They've pushed through the jungle. Massive blocks of infantry here. These guys have got 2 action points left over, so they're just shooting at the Indians here in the open. There's a couple of LMGs, a couple of rifles in there. So basically 6s to hit, and we've got 1, 2, 3 hits on those. Just knock that over, but it was a 6, I promise you. So that's 3 hits on those. They're saving on a 4, 5 or a 6. They're in partial terrain, so that becomes a 3, 4, 5 or a 6. But let's have a look. That is 1 kill and 2 saves, so that's enough to kill them and wipe them out. So that's going to be another casualty marker there. And then we have the other group over here using their 2 actions to fire. There's basically 7 dice in total, so that's 14. They're firing at the ones in the building this time. So 6s are hits, so we've got 1, 2 hits this time, and everything else is a miss. So the Indians are going to put it onto a rifle group, and then the Japanese will put it onto their platoon commander. So rifle group saving on 2 up. They've saved. Platoon commander saving on 2 up. He's saved as well. So they got away with that. So now we come on to the reinforcement roll for the Japanese. They can't do anything else than use up all their action points. So it's very simple this. You either roll 4d6 per unit, or you can combine all the dice into 1 to roll for 1 unit. And let me just tell you, for normal infantry platoons on foot, which I'm calling the company commander here, you need a 3 or above. For vehicles and any support units, you need a 5 or a 6. So for example here, I've got 2 units. So I've got the company commander. Again, I'm not entirely sure if he's meant to be on the table at the start or not. Makes no difference at this point because they're both off anyway. So we have, so I could either roll 4d6 and try to get the tanks on. For every one that I roll, you can bring on 1 base of every successful roll. You can bring on 1 base of the units, or they go into the ready pile. If you want to bring them on before everything is ready, you can do. I think you need at least a minimum of 3 bases to come on though, so both of these tanks will have to be ready. However, if I wanted to, I could roll 8 dice to try to ensure that the tanks come on. However, if I do that, and you can only do this once, you either roll all of the dice available to you, or you roll individually. Then the opponent also gets a roll. If they roll a 4, 5 or a 6, they choose which one you're actually going to dice for. So in this case, if I said, right, I'm going to go for the 8 option, I'd want to bring the tanks on. However, my opponent gets a roll. If they roll a 4, 5 or a 6, they can choose either the tanks or the commander. And in this case, probably maybe, well, it's about subtle for this one, but you know, if you had stuff like mortars and things, you might want to bring those on instead of a platoon. In this case, I'm just going to roll 4d6 for each of these. So rolling for the tanks, I need 5s and 6s. I need 2 5s and 6s to get them both on. And no, they're not even ready yet, so they're just sitting off the table. And then for the platoon commander, I just need 1 3 up. I've got a 5 there and a 3 there anyway, so he can come on. So now the way it works is I bring him on a square, one of the squares. The opponent and myself, me in this case, we both roll a dice. If there is a difference in the dice, if the dice results are the same, he just comes on the square he wants, wherever I wanted it to as the active player. If there's a difference, then the opponent can bring them on anywhere up to that difference in squares either side. So I'm going to try to bring him on a road, no other reason really. So we both roll. So first of all, this is the Indians roll. They rolled a 3. The Japanese have rolled a 4. So the Indians, if they wanted to, they can deviate him up to 1 square either side of where he's come on. In this case, there's not much point, so they're not going to. I'm just going to ignore it and let them bring them on the road. So I'll just get him placed on the road so we know where he is. Right, so it's the Indians' turn now, and it is their second turn, so this is their asset phase. So we're actually going to use rapid arrivals. They're using all 6 of their dice for this, and they need a 6 at least on one of these to get it, and this basically allows them to bring on reinforcements at the end of this turn. Let's just see. 6, they've got one, excellent. So what they do now then is they roll a d6 and they add 3 to it because they want to bring foot units on, and that's how many foot units will be ready to arrive in their reinforcements turn without them having to roll for reinforcements. So let's have a look. 2 plus 3 we said is a 5, so we've got 5 bases ready to go. So they are going to choose, let's go with 3 LMGs, their platoon commander, and then also a foot base. So they can bring those on because they need at least a minimum of 3, and they might be able to bring some more on as well as part of their reinforcements later. But it's not going all the way for the Indians because they still have a lot of casualties, so let's count them up. We've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that is more problems than not problems. So they've got to do a morale test. On an 8 or above they will rout. So let's have a look. 10, they've routed. So that is that unit off. Now if they were the attacker, they would be able to actually get that back on the table as a reinforcement, but because they are defenders, they're only able to do that if they're raw. These aren't raw, so they're basically done for this turn pretty much. Okay, so now we've got the firing for the Indians. That was their morale, it's disappeared, so now it's the motivation. They obviously can't motivate those units because they've gone, but they can motivate their two pounders. Now we do this with 2d6, they automatically motivate, they don't have to roll for it like they do with infantry. So the first ones, they've got 6, so it's 2d6 as I say, per gun or vehicle, so they've got 6, and the other one, they have 7, so that's pretty good actually. That's just what they want. They have an arc of fire, so these ones are facing towards this corner of this square, so their arc of fire goes from here, then these 2 squares, then out further like that. So these are actually able to fire at this building here because it's got these Japanese in it. It only has a HE of 1 though, so it can only fire 1. If it hits, it then only causes one actual hit, but it costs 4 points to fire the main gun, so that's going to cost them can only fire once. Well, they can fire up to 3 times, but it's going to cost them 4 times each. They need an 8 or above to hit. Let's just see what we have for the modifiers. So let's have a look. Veterans shooting, no they're not. Previous shot was at the same square, no it wasn't. Raw shooting, no. Vehicle target move 2 or more squares, no. Foot base or towed gun target, yes they are because they're firing into those buildings with infantry. Foot or tow gun at 4 or more range, no. Shooter has already moved this turn, no they haven't, and the target is in buildings, so that's another -1, so it's -2, so they need a 10 up on these ones to cause 1 hit. So look, 7, so no they've failed. Over here, because these are facing this way, for every 45-degree turn that you take, it costs you 1 AP. So he's going to go 1, 2, so that's going to cost them 2. That brings them down to 5 action points, and then they will once again fire with that. That takes them down to 5 down to 4. So we are 2d6 once more. It is previous shot was the same square or 1 or 2 square range, neither at foot or for foot 80, but they're not foot 80, or it's defenders towed gun, so they get a +1. They should have got a +1, but they didn't get it anyway. So that's a +1 straight away. They're not raw. It's not vehicle target that moved. It's not a foot base. It is at a foot base or a towed gun target because they're firing at infantry, so that's a -1. So that takes them back to 0 so far. The shooter has already moved this turn because they moved to go, so that's another -1. So we're looking at basically a 9 or above to hit. Let's have a look. An 8, no, that is a miss. So unfortunately for them, that is the turn over for the Indians. Okay, so we are on to their reinforcements now for the Indians. So I've set out the dice so I know who is going to roll. We've already got these ones. These are going to come on this turn anyway. I can add to that with these because the effect of rapid arrivals doesn't affect any more rolls later on in the turn like this. So I can add maybe up to another 4 units onto there potentially if they get their 6s. And I've just sorted these out for everybody else as well. So let's just see what we get. I'm not going to roll them all as one big bunch because, as I say, the enemy then gets might get a vote in that. So we'll just work our way through. So the Lanchesters, we're looking for 6s. Let's have a look. Yes, we've got one. So one of those is now ready. It can't arrive yet because it needs at least 3 units, no, foot bases. So we could actually bring a Lanchester on. I'll have a think. The MMGs at the back. One of theirs is ready, so I'm just going to put that there. I'll change these dice out and put them, give them numbers so I know who's ready and who isn't. The mortars, we've got 1 ready, so it's not great so far. The platoon commander himself, company commander should I say, no, he's not ready, so he's forgotten about. And then this platoon over here, these really need it. Nope, not a single one of them is ready. They've obviously got lost in the jungle. And then we've got the very last one, the ones that have already got some on the table. Let's have a look. No, they haven't brought any of theirs on either. So the only things we've got ready are I'm going to bring a Lanchester on because they need the support at this point. And we're also going to bring these on. So we shall do that roll off that we do before. I'm going to try to get these on just to the right of the road, so that's where they're going to be. So let's first of all, the Indian roll is a 6, the Japanese roll is a 3, so the Japanese can actually shift them up to 3 squares away from their intended advance, and they are going to. They're going to put them out in the jungle, so I'm just going to put the platoon commander on so I know where they are. That's not good for them. And then we've got the ones coming on the road. I think they automatically come on the road anyway, so they don't have to roll for it. So I'm going to bring the Lanchester on the road anyway. So that will just appear at the back. I did get it wrong. The Lanchester does have to roll for it. He may appear on the road. As you can see here, the platoon commander ended up here. He wanted to be over here, but they got shifted over there by the Japanese. So let's just roll. The Indians roll is a 5, the Japanese roll is a 5, so he actually does end up on the road anyway, so don't know what I was complaining about. Then the very final thing for the Indians' turn, roll our dice, see what we get, 2, so they are now down to 15 of their countdown clock. Okay, for the Japanese, the first thing they do is they do their company commander. Oh sorry, it's their asset selection first of all, I do apologise. And do they want to bring anything on? I don't think they do at the moment, they don't really need anything. So I'm going to leave them as it is. So we go straight on to the company commander, which is the guy who's just arrived last turn. He can do 3 things. First thing, 1, he can only move once, but he basically moves up to D6 squares. He doesn't have to take into any account any kind of terrain. He's rolled a 6, so there are his action points. So I'm just going to move him forward. 1, 2. I'm actually going to bring him up to there, to 3, to there. He's not going to use the other 2. And now he's going to use his other activations to motivate the platoon commanders, which will give them an extra command this turn. So he's going to try to motivate him. A 1 is always a fail, 6 is a pass. So first of all, let's have a look. Yes, he's passed, so that's going to give him 4. He's over here, so that's going to give him 4 activations this turn. And then we're going to try with the other platoon commander who is over in the jungle over here, and he is 1, 2, 3, 4 away, so he needs 4, 5 or a 6 for him. No, he doesn't do it, but that ends his turn, but at least he got somebody else motivated over here. Right, so the Japanese have just done the activations and the movements, and they've pushed forward these 2 units here, and these are now firing at the anti-tank gun. Unfortunately for the anti-tank gun, it is pointing this way, so it can't opportunity fire back. These have got 1 dice left of their activation, so we're just going to use that. So we've got an LMG, second LMG, no, it's a rifles. So rifle, that's a mortar, sorry, 1, 2, I'm not actually using mortars. 2 dice for the rifles, and then 2 dice for that LMG. They're not clustered. There is also a transport in there, so they're hitting on 6s. Let's have a look. No, 3, 3, 3 and 1, so that's no hits for those. And then we've got these ones here. These are going to do the same. They are also going to fire into there as well using their 3 dice, and they have an LMG and 2 rifles, so that's going to be 3 for each of the rifles and then 6 for that LMG. So let's see what our hits are, if there are any. We've got 1, 2 hits, so that's going to be 1 on each on both the transport and on the gun itself. So we've got those 2 hits. Now transports, when being fired at by small arms, can't be destroyed. You fire at the occupant. There is no occupant in that, but I'm going to say it absorbs one of the hits, so they don't destroy it, but they do fire at it. So one of the hits, because the defender chooses, they're going to put it onto that transport. The other hit is going to go on the gun. If the gun is destroyed, then the transport is also destroyed. I think that's fair enough. The gun is saving on a 3-up though with no modifiers. Let's have a look. 1, that gun has been destroyed, so the transport is also destroyed as well. They don't leave behind casualty markers because they're not foot, but they have been taken off the table. Okay, so over here in this central section, these guys, they had 4 action point tests. They tried to get rid of the KIAs behind them at the back, failed. These guys tried to motivate, they failed. But the other ones over here in the centre, they managed to get quite a few points. So they moved forward into the pigsty area, and they are now firing at this other anti-tank gun over here. So we are now using the light mortar, but I'll start with the infantry weapons first of all. So they've got they're using 3 actions to attack. So they've got 3 rifles, 2 rifles should I say, so that's going to be 6 dice, and then they've also got that LMG, so that's going to be another 6 dice. And again, that transport can absorb these hits if so. Let's just have a look. Hitting on 6s, that's just 1 hit, so that's absorbed by the transports, so that is ignored because they're only firing light. Small arms. And then we've got the mortar, and that is going to be firing 1 dice. Basically just needs to hit. Yes, it's hit, but it causes 2 hits on each of the bases in the square. So 2 hits on the anti-tank gun itself, so it's saving on a 3-up. Saved 1, 1's killed, and because that's killed there's no point rolling for that transport, so that is off as well. So now the Indians have got very limited anti-tank capability. And then just to sum up the Japanese turn, they did very poorly over here. They only rolled once, so they didn't get to motivate very well, but they were able to at least move into these units. They spread them out a bit, so it's not such a target-rich environment anymore. They are a little bit less dense. So next up, it's the Japanese reinforcement roll. They've only got 1 unit, so they're just rolling 4 dice. Let's see what they do. One of them is ready, so we'll just put a dice behind them to show that they are ready. They're not going to bring it on just yet, I don't think, though. Maybe wait till next turn. Okay, over here we've got these guys. They've got 3 action points. They're using all of them to fire at the Japanese there. Then these ones, they got 5. They've moved forward into the bushes here, and they're probably going to fire at those Japanese there. But let's just see what happens with the firing here first of all. They're going to be using, they've got 3 rifles first of all, so well 1 rifle, so it's 3 actions for those rifles. Then they've got another 6 there for the for the LMG, plus 2 extra for each one because they are firing at 4 or more units. So it's going to be a lot of firing into there. So let's just have a look. 6 is our hits. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. That's good going actually. And they are then saving on 4, 5, 6. However, they are in bushes there, and they are also veterans, so they are now saving on a anything but a 1 basically. Is there an LMG in there? They've got a mortar and an LMG and 2 rifles. So the 2 rifles, 1's they're killed. 4 and a 2, no, they're saved. And then the LMG, a 1 it's killed, no. The mortar, same again, no. So relatively poor firing, but we also then have these ones over here. These are firing at the Japanese here. These are in partial terrain this time, and we have again 3 shots, but there's 2 LMGs in there, so it's going to be 6 shots for each LMG basically first of all. But then because again they are firing at 4 targets in there, and they're going to get those clustered bonuses, so that's going to be another 6 dice for each of those LMGs. So there's 2 there. Let me just grab the other 4 from the dice bag. This has gone a bit crazy. And same again, hitting on 6s. This might be pretty damaging if they are able to hit. So look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hits in total. So there are 4 in there, so each one of those will take a hit each, and then it's down to the enemy, or the Japanese in this case, to decide who takes those extra hits. So I'm going to take 1. Everybody has basically got 1. You have to give 1 to everybody in the square before you can start adding the extra ones in. There's an LMG and a mortar, a rifle and a platoon leader in there. So they'll take a hit on the mortar and 1 on the rifles. So there's 2 hits on those rifles. Right, they are saving on a 4, 5 or 6. 3, 4, 5, 6 because they're veterans. They are impartial, so that becomes a 2, 4, 5, 6, but these are actually close range, so that becomes a 3, 4, 5 or a 6. So 3 up, 2 kills, but that was only 1 base, so let's just put that there to one side for 1 second. Then we have the 2 hits on the mortar, same again, 1 or a 2 is a kill. That's another kill on those, so that's 2 casualties in there now. This is not going well for them, is it? And then 1 hit on the LMG, 1 or a 2 it's off. No, 4 it was fine. And then same with the platoon sergeant. 2. He saves on a 2 up, I think, because he's a platoon sergeant. He gets an extra +1, so he has actually saved. That was a 2, so he's okay. But they do have 2 killed in actions in there, so that's 1 problem. Just put those there just to remind me, and I'll come back and put the bases on. But so that was pretty good shooting. If they'd have done a little bit better on the right flank as well, that would have been pretty good. Okay, just got to roll to test to see if these can return fire or not. The mortar in there is too close anyway, so there's only 3 dice. Let's have a look. 5, 6. Yes, there's 1 of them can return fire. So it's going to be the LMG. It's firing with 2d6. It needs what was it? It needs 6s, wasn't it? So that's 1 hit. So it's going to go on the rifles. They're saving on a 4, becomes a 2 up. They've been killed. So another Indian casualty. And then let's just check over here if they can return fire as well. There's 2 bases that can. No, they can't. Okay, the final Indian action is the Lanchester. It's moved forward. I actually already got 10 action points, so he's moved forward 1, and then he's going to fire with the remaining 8. So yeah, it's 4 shots per turn to fire with its HMG that it's got in there. So basically a HMG fires 4 dice because he's going to fire at these guys here first of all. He also gets a +3 dice once per turn after final calculations. So he either fires at these who are clustered, so he's going to do that first of all. So 6 as a hit. That's nothing. 1, 1, 2 and a 3, so they're missed. And then he's going to turn his attention to these ones here in the next to him. So using 7 dice this time. Sorry, no, he's only firing with 2 dice, and then he gets an extra 3 because he's firing at non-clustered target. So 6 hits again, and there is 1 hit there. All the rest have missed. So let's see what that hit does. They're going to put it onto their rifles over here. So let's see, 4, 5, 6. They're veterans, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6. They're also in partial cover, so 2, 4, 5, 6. 2 up, should I say. 4 they've saved, so that ends the Indian's turn because he's not going to use any more of his points. Right, we're on to the Indians' reinforcement rolls. So first of all, let's try these. I'm not rolling them all together because I don't want the Japanese to get the choice. So 6s, right, so we've got the armoured car is on, so that's good. Let's try for the medium machine guns. They've got another one. They don't have their platoon sergeant with them yet though, so that's not so good. Then we'll try for the mortars. No, they don't get any extras. Let's try for the company commander himself. Yes, he can arrive if he wants to, so that's pretty useful. Let's try for this unit here to see if any of these come on. 2 of them do, but they can't arrive yet because they need 3 at least to come on, so I'm going to put it on 2 rifles there. And then finally this group over here, this platoon, let's have a look. No, none of them arrive. So we can bring on the platoon, the company commander, and the other armoured car. So I'll roll off camera just to see where the deviations are. We did it last turn, so I'm not going to go through it again. So I'll see where they end up, if they end up anywhere. So just to show you there, unfortunately the company commander ended up all the way over here, deviated right to the edge of the board, and they also deviated the Lanchester to here as well, who was supposed to come on the road, but it didn't work. So they're obviously getting lost in the jungle. And the final thing to do for the Indians in this turn now is just roll for the countdown. So that's 3, so they're down onto 7, down to 14, so that means there is still going to be at least 3 more turns. Right, in the Japanese turn, their company commander issued orders, and basically he managed to give quite a few of them extra orders. These ones over here didn't get it, but they have the platoon commander has motivated. He failed to motivate these, so they've only got 1 residual, but they are going to fire at the Indians here in the hard cover. So let's just see what happens. 6s and they've hit. That's 1 hit, so it's an LMG and a rifle firing there. So that's 1 hit. They're going to put it onto their LMG because they've got a platoon commander in there. They are saving on a 3, goes to 2, sorry, saving on 4, it goes to a 2 because they're in woodland, but they are close by actually, so it goes to a 3. 3 up, 5, that's saved them okay. However, their trials are not yet over. Just take a dice there off Tiny. These are going to use 3 of their actions. They also got rid of the KIAs. They rolled for those a second ago. I didn't show it, but they had 6 motor action points. So they've used 2 to get rid of the KIAs, and then they've also they're now firing with 3 dice with the LMG at the same target. Let's just see what happens there. So they've got a 6, 1 hit. Same again. It's going to go on that LMG. And they're not close proximity, so they're saving on a 2 or above this time. 6, they have saved fine. Let me just quickly test if these get return fire. 5 and a 6 they do. Yes, they do. So they've got LMG. They're firing back at the ones that fired at them last. So let's see, 6 is a hit, no hits. So no effect. And then over here, these ones have moved forward out of the tough terrain. They got into this terrain. They're going to attack these 2 Indians here. Before they go any further, they're going to fire first, and then they're going to fight. Then they're going to go in on with the bayonet. First of all, let's see if these can return fire. Opportunity fire, yes, they can. So 1 of them can fire. So hitting on 6s. There's 2 LMGs in there, so it makes no difference anyway. 4 and 5, no hits. They will then fire with 2 of their action points to take them now to 3, ready to attack. So we have 2 rifles and 1 LMG. So they're attacking with, that's the rifles, and then they've also got their LMG for so 8 shots into these at close range, and we've got 1 hit in total. They're both LMGs, so it makes no difference which one the hit goes on. So they are saving on 3, 4, 5, 6. They're in hard cover. That becomes a 2, 4, 5, 6. However, they are close by, so it comes a 3 up on their save. 2, that's a kill straight away for those Indians. So let's just put a KIA in there quickly, so I'll remember to put the casualty markers in 1 second. And then they are going in with the bayonet. So we've got 3 dice per base that is attacking, and they've got 4 dice going in there. So let me just calculate the rest of these numbers as well, so I can't remember off the top of my head. No flamethrower, no vehicles, no SMGs or assault rifles. They are veterans, so that's an extra D6, but their target is in buildings, so that takes that out. So this is the Japanese hitting on 6s. They just need to kill 1, to be honest, at this point. So look, 1, 2, 3, 3 kills, so yes, they have. So let's see how many. Well, they've actually caused 3 kills on now, so that's just for the calculation. But they may get wiped out anyway. Well, they're wiped out anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they're starting with 3. No flamethrowers, no vehicles, not SMG. They're not veteran, they're not raw, and they're not pinned. So it's just a basic 3 dice roll. not a single kill. So that is them wiped out. So this is going to probably affect their... No, it's not going to affect their morale just yet. They're on 3, but they're teetering on the brink. So another wipeout for the Japanese there. Okay, we have now got the Japanese have moved forward. They're attacking against this Lanchester. It does get a return fire. They're going to assault it because that's easier than anything else. It gets return fire first of all. Here they come. So look, 6s are hits. That's only 1 hit. So let's just see. That's going to be on their rifles. Saving on a 4.56 plus 1 because they're veterans. So 3 up. They've failed. So that's 1 unit down straight away for the Japanese. Unfortunately for them. Now because of that they have 6 dice plus 1 dice because they're veterans in the assault. So let's have a look. 6s are kills. They've got 1 hit, 1 kill on it. Because it's a vehicle, it saves on a 3, 4, 5, 6, otherwise it's destroyed. So let's just have a look. No, it's been destroyed. However, it does fight back with 3 dice. 6s are kills, so 1 kill on the Japanese again. So that's another one. They have to take it off, so it's going to be another rifle unit there. So the Japanese have lost 2, but the Lanchester is also destroyed. Puts a smoke marker on that Lanchester because it does actually create a partial terrain feature there now. Okay, then over here we've got the Japanese. They've just moved into position against that company commander. Right, so first of all, these ones here are going to fire at him. They've got 1 point left they can use. So we've got a mortar. I think it's a mortar. Oops, knocking the jungle about there. Yes, it's a mortar. They've got a light mortar, so that can fire. And they've also got, I think that's just rifles there. So rifles and a mortar. So the mortar fires first of all. 6, no. And then the rifles, no. So nothing else. We've got these ones here. These are also firing as well. And then they're going to go into the assault. So we've got 2 rifles and then also an LMG hitting on 6s. No hits, but they are then going to use, that was 1 point, so now they've got 3 left, so they're going to use up the last 3 and then go into an assault on their company commander. So let's just see what happens with that. So they've got 3 dice. He gets to return fire. I think he's got an SMG, so I'm going to give him 1 anyway. So he hits on 6s, no. So they go into the attack, so they've got 1, 2, 3 bases, so that's going to be 66, plus they're attacking into woods, -1, but they are veterans, so +1. So 6s are kills, and they've killed the company commander of the Indians, unfortunately for them. So he fights back with just 3 dice. Let's have a look. But he has killed one of them as well in retribution, so we'll take off one of their rifles. Right, the final Japanese moves, we've got this group here. This unit have moved forward through the broken Lanchester. They moved forward with the rest of their platoon as well from over there. They've reached that road, they've cut it. We've also got these guys over here. They just killed the company commander of the Indians, so they're he's out, he's not coming back. We've got 1 Lanchester which is currently outnumbered by a group here. It's also got these group on its flank as well, and the ones that just caused that the other one to burn as well. We currently have Indians here, 1 with KIA. Well, there's 1 dead there. There's another dead Indian group there. We've got a Japanese group here in the jungle next to them. They're on the edge of the board, and we've also got that Japanese group there as well, and they are almost on the edge of the board. I didn't really set an objective, but in Malaya, the Japanese were pushing down that main road, so I'm going to say this is a Japanese win. I don't think there's really a great deal more points in going on with this. This is just going to be, they're going to get to the edge of the board, they're going to block every square, and then that means that the Indians can't even deploy anybody onto their table edge anyway. So I'm going to call this a pretty veritable Japanese victory, I think. They did pretty well in this one. But this, as I say, has been a bit of a tester game for me as much as anything else, just to show you really how PBI plays. Really enjoyed it. There's a lot of nice rules in there. A lot of it you can hold in your head. Some of it obviously I've got wrong. There's going to be a few mistakes here and there, of course. There always is in these videos, but that's by the by. The other thing is it's just a good fun game, really. I want to play more of this now. That's made me. I'll turn my attentions probably towards Eastern Europe, or even Western, the Northwest Europe as well, and do some games for that, because it is such a nice, simple game. Flows very well. The grid system works really well. I like gridded games anyway, as I'm sure you know if you watch these videos. Well, I'll wrap it up there and say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave me a comment if you have. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you in the next PBI video or Storm of Steel video. Laters.